Welcome back to Refresh. This is a time to connect, be inspired, learn something new, and ultimately feel a bit better about ourselves and this time we spent together. How is everyone? Of course, when I say that, I would love to hear a roaring, we're okay, we're doing great, whatever. But I would say about every day or perhaps every other day, whatever, the question comes up about purpose. Friends, acquaintances, family, they raise the issue of wondering. Do you ever just sit and wonder? Wonder about why I am here. Wonder what my purpose is in life. And as we continue to read and listen to advice, talk to our friends, we're also encouraged to find purpose. The follow-up is, how do I find my purpose? Well, I got to say today, as I sit here, again, the world is swirling. I feel really fortunate because I ask these questions of myself every day. And even as I find myself to be living in my passions and pursuing purposeful and meaningful endeavors, the asking of the question gets us to kind of reset every day and reinforce the goodness that is in our lives, right? The goodness that we may tend to overlook, right? The work that we take on that does not have chores, but let me just say that again. The work we take on has chores, like work is work. But it delivers so much more, right? It takes work to deliver goodness, right? To fulfill the passion, your purpose. And so I sit here today with you, having spent a whole lot of time. I mean, our amazing Generation W team, delivered 2 days of Positive Impossible to approximately 1,000. Yes, I didn't make that number up. Teen girls. One day in Orlando, Generation Wow, and the other in Jacksonville. And I have to tell you, they are wow. They inspire these girls, they challenge, they dream, and they too ask themselves, wherever they are on their journey, what will be their purpose? It has and continues to be an honor to engage in this work of encouraging mentorship and leadership and the pursuit of the positive and the possible. And so today, I am so grateful to everyone, all of us, as I said, the Gen W team, our volunteers, our facilitators, all of our girls, of course, our mentors, our corporate partners, all of them, to put teen girls as part of their focus in life and to feel the wow in them. And speaking of wow, our guest today is super wow. She actually personifies wow. Dr. Dawn Mussallem's personal journey, a cancer and heart transplant survivor. That's right. Everybody says, wow, how did you do that? And today we will find out. She speaks from what she knows and as an assistant professor of medicine at the Mayo Clinic and a board certified lifestyle medicine and breast specialist. Okay, big mouthful here. We'll get to break that down together. She truly wowed all of us who attended her workshop at our last Generation W event last spring on how we can lead healthier lives. Dr. Mussallem, I asked Dr. Dawn, welcome, and to Generation W, so glad you're back to share your magic insights and really uplifting advice for us today.
Thank you so much, Donna and Generation W, for having me. I get super tickled and excited about these events. I always wake up early, but on the mornings that I have these events, I wake up even more early. I'm just more excited to be able to share it's truly, as we were sharing before we started the recording, just my love for life and zeal for life. And it's just so very precious. And I'm so blessed to be here to be able to share that with you today. So thank you.
Well, to that end, listen, you have a lot of unbelievable material out there and we've gotten to see you in person, but here's a great quote. So let's kick it off with your quote, your voice. That was the most powerful thing I've experienced in life, is the experience of your life gone, but then it being given back again. Why don't you tell us all about that?
Yeah, that actually brings tears to my eyes because I remember that event so clearly. So it was September 22nd, 2016. And I can picture my body in the room at this moment. And it was a special day because I was given the opportunity to present to Mayo Clinic leaders about the success of the integrative medicine and breast health pilot I had been working on the year before. So I had just finished with my morning patients, just like I did today, finished with my morning patients, had a very exciting thing. And usually I would feel great, super excited about something like that. And I was, but as I approached the stairs on this particular day to go to the boardroom to do my presentation, I felt really off. I felt weak. I remember my legs were shaking And as I got to the bottom of the stairs, I knew something was really wrong with me. And I hustled to get to that boardroom so I was on time, because it was very, very important. I had, again, talking about meaning and purpose. This is my life's, meaning, passion, and purpose is helping others attain their vitality and flourish after any health adversity. And that's what I was there to present, was the need for a program like this. So I remember opening up the boardroom door and I could barely open it. The woman on the inside actually had to help me open it. I took my seat at the head of the table. The room was filled with executives and doctors. And I'm sure any of you that have ever used a mouse and you have the cursor on the screen was at the far end of the room on a big screen. And I wasn't even strong enough to control the cursor, or the mouse, I should say, with the cursor on the other end of the screen. And within seconds, the cursor got more faded. The people in the room became more faded. And that was my last conscious memory. And I had had a cardiac arrest. It was a ventricular fibrillation, cardiac arrest with a flat line for 4 minutes. It was a near-death experience. It was amazing. It was amazing in the sense that—
Wait. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it's powerful, right? I mean, you hear these people that have near-death experience and like, oh my God, I'm like hearing about this. And I will say that this made me never fear death. And I before this time, I think we always fear death. I mean, it's interesting. Like, we work so hard at like trying to live in life, but we're all impermanent. We all have finitude, and we're all dying with each breath, basically, right? Our time on earth is limited. So we should really embrace the concept of death more than the concept of life. It's interesting. The Himalayan province of Bhutan, they meditate on the concept of death 5 times a day. They're the happiest place in the world. So, going back to this event, this cardiac arrest, I was 43 years old at the time. I would describe this place as a place of complete quietude. It was a very interesting feeling that I just remember being associated with. It was like complete acceptance of what was otherwise totally unknown. There was this element of like innocence and comfort. And what I would describe is I felt like I was being enveloped in love, in just like harmony. And I felt it, and this is what I felt like I was being held. I felt like I was being held by the hands of God. It was so amazing. And I had no element of time. I had an internal defibrillator, and we'll maybe go a little bit on my backstory of how this all happened over the years that my heart became this weak. But I had an internal defibrillator, and it kept on trying to shock me to life, because the rhythm was a flat line. It could not effectively shock me. But after 4 minutes, I did come back to life. And it was with one of those shocks. And I remember this enormous, it was like a tidal wave of energy coming through my body. And I would just describe this energy of being lifeless and then having your life given back to you as this mystic, magical, really difficult to verbalize immense power of this reality that I experienced. And that was one of my most amazing experiences ever in my life, outside of giving childbirth. And the next would have been, you had mentioned I had a heart transplant, was waking up from my heart transplant. So those are the 3 most incredible experiences in my life that, most women, we've all had babies. I would say that's the most beautiful aspect and experience I ever had. But it's closely followed by these other 2 powerful events. As long as you people want you to have any of those, but I can share what they were like with you.
I can't see anybody else's face. You can see mine, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And there's so many questions. And one of the beauties of Generation W and Refresh is we give the opportunity. This is about a conversation, a community engages. I'm not sure who's on Facebook, so I'm always going to check to see if we have any feedback from there. Please post your questions as we go. All right. Dawn, you said, the thing I wrote down is we're all impermanent. Okay, that's a reality. Mm-hmm. You said you felt like you were being held, and then you were being brought back. Mm-hmm. What was the best part of all of this? The one that makes you smile today?
Mm-hmm. It was that there was an element of complete acceptance amid the total unknowing. And it was an element because there was something much bigger than me. And I have strong belief in spirituality, and my belief is that in God, and that I was being held by this comfort and knowing that life after what we know it on earth is something very safe and welcoming and very harmonious and glorious and very accepting. And people say, was there a white light? I don't remember any of that. I just remember this state of existence that was so pure and innocent and warm and loving. that no one would ever fear it. That's what I would say.
Wow. Well, you said you're going to tell us a little bit more about how you got to this place at 43 years old where your heart was so weak.
Yeah. Thank you, Donna. So it was interesting. My whole life growing up, I was really just enamored. As a 4-year-old kid, people would say, what do you want to do when you grow up? I'd say, I want to be in a Smucker's jar. And they would think I was totally weird. But Willard Scott's Smucker's jar 100th birthday celebration, I thought that was cool. So I wanted to be a 100-year-old woman. I wanted to be very healthy, and I wanted to be a doctor because I thought that everything that had to do with health and vitality was really cool. So I lived a very healthy lifestyle growing up, and my life was beautiful. I had an amazing family. I lived a very healthy life, like I said, and I couldn't have asked for a more perfect life as a child growing up. Through college, went on to medical school. A few weeks into medical school, I wasn't feeling good. Saw several doctors. They said it was asthma. One doctor even said it was in my head. One day on my way home from medical school, I collapsed. And it was that day, I was 26 years old. This was in the year, what's so interesting? It was almost 23 years to the day, almost 23 years to the day that this happened. I was diagnosed with stage 4 diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. And there was a 16-centimeter mass wrapped around my chest and my heart. It was compressing my major vessels. So they had to take me to urgent surgery. They had to start immediate chemotherapy. And my chances of surviving this very hard cancer back then, we're doing much better with research and with advancements for treating this cancer. But back then, it was a very difficult cancer to treat. So they had said, you need to quit medical school. You're not going to be able to have a child. And it really just ignited my autonomous motivation to steer my own ship. I stayed in medical school. I did very, very good. I ended up having a daughter, and we'll talk about that. And the stage 4 cancer was cured. It required many months of chemotherapy, a bone marrow transplant, and radiation. But as you can imagine, when you're diagnosed with stage 4 cancer back in 2000, without the scientific advances we have today, that radiation actually had to go right to the heart because that's where the tumor was. And I had very high doses of chemo. So it ultimately, several weeks after my daughter was born, I went into cardiogenic shock in 2003 as a result of all these previous treatments I had had for my cancer. So I developed dilated cardiomyopathy suspected from the chemotherapy, radiation, restrictive heart disease as well. And then there was this peripartum element that some women can also develop heart failure. So it was kind of like this multi-pronged etiology to my heart failure. And a lot of people say, well, wait a minute, this conversation that told me, I really don't want to sign up for that. But I'll be the quickest to say that it was my healthy living that clearly allowed me to attain my vitality during my cancer treatment. And when I had my bone marrow transplant, this was back when you were essentially like the girl in the bubble. You were in the hospital for many, many weeks, and you were not allowed to leave that room. I remember looking out and seeing everyone else so sick, and I describe it as they were dying in an effort to stay alive. And I attained my vitality without pause. Every single sense was so elevated. My life was in this beautiful place of existence that I would never, ever have traded that experience in. It taught me so much about the preciousness of life and how to just embrace every single human experience that we would ever have. Phenomenal. So yeah, stage 4 cancer was fine. I beat it. I was cured. But then we had this big problem. We had to deal with this heart failure. Became a patient at Mayo Clinic, and they filled literally my heart with hope. They treated with medications for many years, procedures. And then I got to this point, I had heart failure from 2003. Fast forward to that cardiac arrest in 2016. I had bumps in the road that whole time. And in fact, the hardest part of my journey was in between that 2003 and 2016. And my husband actually died unexpectedly.
What?
Yeah, and that's not something I talk about when I present, but that was really the most challenging thing. And I think what I share with people is when we have disease ourselves, we have such innate internal strength to lean in on. But, my journey should never make someone else feel weak in their own journey, because I believe I was given a lot of God-given talent or God-given resilience and gifts to be able to kind of get through this. But when my husband died, it was crushing. It was so difficult to go through that, especially with a young baby. She was about 5 at the time. So she wasn't necessarily a baby, but it was just so challenging. And I just think, that transformative power of grief and suffering and pain, whatever it may be, can move us beyond just merely coping with hardship, and instead just really transcended this life of renewal. And that's when my husband passed away. I would say that I really strengthened in my faith and spirituality, because I had to believe that he was someplace safe, that he was in heaven and he was going to be okay, and that he would watch over my daughter and I. And that's what worked for me. But it was very difficult. You just don't know what to do when you're a young woman and you go through that. And I had a major health issue, worried that my daughter would maybe lose both of her parents. So then, it was tough after he died. I was able to go back to work and do all the things I needed to do, but then I faced this big challenge in 2016. And then in 2016, the doctors at Mayo Clinic knew that my heart was getting much more weak. We tried several more procedures to see if there would be a way to give me a little bit more time with this heart. But in 2019, it just got more and more difficult. The last procedure they tried actually led to a stroke that went to the left eye, and I lost vision out of part of that eye. So the heart failure journey is tough, especially for younger people. It's hard for older people, but it's really hard for younger people. I just describe it as I felt like my life was shackled with this disease. No one would have known it externally. You look normal, you look healthy, but man, it was so difficult to just live at that higher vibrational energy that I like to live at. I'm a high energy woman. And it was
you are vibrating today, Dr. Dawn. I can tell you that.
So in 2019, I was listed for heart transplant. And, it's interesting. 95% of Americans believe in organ donation, but only 58% register. And that's a huge problem. Waited 12 months for an organ and got not one single call. And I was getting more and more sick. I remember having dinner with my daughter. She was a senior in high school, and I have a picture, and I would hold my fist so tight anytime I would do anything just to try to keep blood flow going to the brain. I was so weak and so feeble. It's so scary living like that. That sounds kind of opposite of what I said, where I wasn't scared of death, but it's not like you want to die, right? If I died, I knew I would be okay with, but I didn't want to die. So after 12 months of being on the list, they had to admit me to the hospital for supportive care, because I was just really that sick at that point and required IV therapies to help my heart properly beat. And then on February 5th, they found a matching donor. And that was probably one of the most amazing human experiences, is waking up to the beat of your new heart. And I didn't know what it felt like. I forgot what it felt like to feel your heart beat. So if you're not an organ donor and you have any doubt, how do you do it? Because why do you want your heart underground? You want your heart to be in a person that's going to live a meaningful life filled with purpose to help humanity. And that's the message I want to deliver strongly. When I woke up, I remember feeling this beating. I remember my body going up and down against the hospital bed. I was like, whoa, how am I able to look like this? This is powerful stuff. And I remember hearing this harmonious sound, and it was my hair. It was like scratching against the crisp white linen sheets in the hospital bed, and it was in this harmonious musical tune to the beat of my new heart. It was so cool. And I remember my body was just warm feeling, because blood was going where it should for the first time in so many years. And I just remember this feeling that every single, and I'll shake when I say it, but every cell was just oscillating at this miraculous frequency. I was alive, and really alive, and I haven't lost that.
Oh my God. So I think I'm so glad I started off with this wow thing, because the story is just more and more wow. And we haven't even talked about your commitment to your work, but here's another, I want to share one other quote, because I think it's perfect for right now, from one of your presentations. So if we're given an obstacle, whether it's cancer or another health issue, how can we reframe it? How can we still do good in our life? And how can we maintain life that is most important and authentic to us?
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what you're doing, Donna.
That's what you're doing. I'm just here helping you tell your story.
It's even being with you and for having this opportunity, but it's true. And, what saved my life was my purpose, that deep purpose of wanting to deliver original love through that lens, wanting to deliver, original medicine, I should say, through that lens of love for humanity. I love people. I want people to appreciate their existence and the sacredness of their own life, just like I've learned along my journey. And I have been very blessed to be in my specialty of lifestyle medicine and integrative oncology at Mayo Clinic, and the support that Mayo Clinic gives me to be with patients in this space. Because there's nothing more beautiful than if you're given an adversity, to have a healthcare professional be able to help guide you as to how you can navigate through life with that disease, to try to, maintain your harmony and then flourish thereafter. And it's quite incredible what I see. And we know that healthy living, not only does a patient feel better, it improves outcomes. And of course, I would rather cancer never happen altogether. I happen to be in the cancer center in that space, working with people, but I love doing a lot of public speaking where I can work with women in that space of prevention as well, because the goal is to prevent it from happening in the first place. And 42% of cancers don't even have to happen if people live healthier lifestyles. That's a statistic from the American Cancer Society. That's 740,000 unnecessary cancers a year. And, the truth is that number is expected to be much, much higher if people fixed how they lived at a younger age. And I have women come in to see me all the time with their new breast cancer diagnoses. We talk deep about the importance of doing a whole food, plant predominant nutritional pattern of eating. And what I often hear is, yeah, but my husband or my kids aren't going to want to do this. And this is a shout out to say, hey, parents, if my mom didn't feed me healthy when I was young, and she did, I don't think I would be alive today. I'm quite certain of that. So we want to invest in our kids' health the same way we invest in their college funds. And we have to show up for ourselves for our health and show up for our kids' health. It's a priority.
Well, I love this lifestyle. I'm laughing only because that is the conversation in our house, because I do eat plant-based, and my husband's like, where's the meat? Like, there's no commercial, where's the meat? And, I'm like, you'll be fine. And and now he finds me at the restaurants, he eats with me. It's like, right? It's a gift you're given to us, and we should be passing it along to ourselves and to others. I am very interested in lifestyle medicine. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so, lifestyle medicine, the American College of Lifestyle Medicine is who I'm board certified through. And lifestyle medicine is really a way of approaching patient care to help to mitigate chronic diseases. And it is really interesting. I would say the biggest aspect of those pillars is nutrition, but let me go over the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. So the first is eating healthy, as you would expect. Like we know we should eat healthy. We all have that knowledge, but understanding the why behind that is critical. And so with the nutritional pattern, it really needs to be more of a whole food. And I'm emphasizing it again, whole food. That means getting rid of those processed foods. And it's a disturbing statistic in America that 67% of our youth's diet is from ultra-processed foods. And among our kids, they've shown that young kids who eat these ultra-processed foods, they have decreased coordination.
Wow.
And as they get older, into their adolescent years, they have decreased cardiovascular fitness. This is a huge red flag, okay, parents? So getting rid of those ultra-processed foods is really important. And it's easy. People say, well, what is that? What is it even an ultra-processed food?
Right. Help us what they are.
You look at the ingredient list nowadays. There's all these words we can't even pronounce. Our food is made in factories. It's so interesting. I gave a few talks last week and the week before, and I had to update a slide. I used to have, there's 10,000 chemicals in the American diet. I had to update that slide because the newest study is showing 26,000 chemicals in the American diet. It's really concerning. So you want to bring foods into your home and prepare foods for your family in the home that are foods that are as close to nature as possible, ones you can pronounce and ones that aren't made in a factory with chemicals, number one. So whole food, plant predominant. It doesn't have to be plant only. I myself do a plant only diet, and I do attribute my flourishing to my nutritional pattern. So I would encourage people to really try it for a month and see how amazing you can feel, but it doesn't need to be perfect. And I really try to drive this home to patients. And I think I still see some people with cancer diagnoses that are so scared that they only can imagine needing to be perfect with this dietary pattern, but the body does not expect that. 80 to 90% perfect is perfect. So know that. So that's like 3 to 6 things a week you can have that really don't count. But you got to make sure that when you have those things, that maybe they're not those ultra processed foods. They can have some of the foods maybe we'll maybe talk about that. That may be a longer conversation if I go there. But maybe more of red meat once in a while, or having a piece of chicken once in a while, those sorts of things. I do try to minimize animal protein and lean more on plant protein. The next pillar, I should go through those pillars though and stay on track.
Okay, we're gonna do the pillars. 1 second. Let me do this. Let me first of all, just for anybody who is late, anyone out there on Facebook, welcome. You're with Refresh. Today we're with the wowing. I'm going to create all these new wow words. Wowable, wow, exciting, brilliant Dr. Dawn Mussallem from the Mayo Clinic, who has had an incredible life experience that is now informing her really important work. She works as in lifestyle. But you know what? Tell me what your title is again. You told me before.
So my specialty is integrative oncology and lifestyle medicine in the
integrative oncology. Okay. And helping us all learn about how we can live better, not only our health from a physical standpoint, we're going to look at some nutrition now, but your emotional state. I'm going to say this again at the end. You said that if we have the transformative power of pain and grief, it can lead to the transformative power of renewal. And connecting that, right, is a way of telling ourselves that no matter what we go through, there is a place for us to be renewed and to live on. And I think that's so incredibly powerful, right? We're going to go back to nutrition, please. I know everybody here is wrapped. I just want to say hi to Mary Piton. I haven't seen her in a long time. Welcome. Hey, Perrin. I know that Karen Friedman's joined us, and thank you, Karen. Appreciate that. And Elizabeth Paul's back after a long inability to join us because everybody's got life and a lot of it going on. The best part is this will be archived and you can find it on our website, so you can share all these great stories and nutritional tips that are coming up right now. Focus on better nutritional health. All right, talk us through this, Dr. Dawn.
Yeah, I'm happy you're giving me a little more time to talk on the nutritional part of things, because that's really what people have the most question about. And this first line is important, right? It's the overall pattern of what you do that matters. There's not a single superfood. And one of my ladies today that I saw, she said, well, what superfood should I focus in on? And I showed her a slide, and it was all plant foods. You know, we know that trying to get those 5 servings of vegetables and fruits a day is so critical. But we know the majority of Americans don't get anywhere near close to 5 servings of vegetables and fruits a day. A serving is about the size of the fist. A fist would be an estimate of what that would look like. And, you know, those vegetables and fruits are going to give you those vitamins and minerals and fiber. Again, fiber, we see that as the second bullet point there, is something you really want to encourage. And again, looking at that overall pattern, another element of that I really want to encourage is whole grains. I'm always seeing people that are on keto diets or low carb diets. There's no reason to be. Your body needs carbohydrates to fuel itself for energy. So whole grains is the message here, not processed grains. So there were studies and people were feeling they were gaining weight on carbohydrate diets. That's because they were processed carbohydrate diets. So, you know, looking at these first 2 things I said in this picture, 50% of your plate, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, try to make that vegetables or fruit, depending on what that meal is. You know, 1/4 of that plate, lean in on those whole grains. Have fun with ancient grains. If you're not celiac, you probably are fine to have some things with wheat in it, especially sprouted wheat. You know, the wheat in America is a little more hybridized, so people are a little more sensitive to that. But the einkorn wheat can be generally quite well tolerated even by people with a wheat sensitivity. Of course, if you're celiac, you need to be cautious and always avoid wheat and also avoid cross-contamination with wheat. But I love really having my patients work in these whole grains for variety. Now, the upper top corner, this would be the diet that I enjoy, and Donna, you too, more plant protein. That's what we should really try to do. You know, so a lot of people say, gosh, Dawn, this is expensive to eat this way. And in fact, there was a recent study that showed us that eating a plant predominant diet is $500 less a year than someone on the standard American diet. So it's actually not expensive to eat this way. And think about beans. Beans are far expensive than buying animal protein, particularly now at the grocery stores. So think of plant-based proteins like beans, lentils, split peas, soy. Soy is another one that I want to be sure to talk about. There's even whole grains that have protein like quinoa, sprouted bread. So think about all these things, nutritional yeast. So there's lots of ways you can get protein. And I had another real cool conversation with another one of my ladies today about protein. She was really worried about not getting enough. And she was a young woman in her 40s. And almost every American gets way more protein than they need. And we know that high protein consumption from recent research has shown us that it can actually potentially not be the goal in mind we once thought it was. Okay.
Really? All right. I'm going to jump in here because I'm worried. I eat a plant-based diet, and I'm worried that I don't get protein enough. And my trainer tells me my muscles won't be able to be as strong as if I don't have animal protein. Has certain proteins we can't get anywhere else, and we should have a little bit of it. And it makes me concerned.
Yeah.
And you're telling me don't be concerned.
You absolutely do not need to be concerned. So there's a great study that was published in the Cell by Dr. Walter Longo, and this was published last year. And it showed us the science. It's really easy to explain. Americans only need about 10% of their calories from protein, okay? But the majority of Americans are getting way over that. So what this study showed us that is individuals that get more than 20% of protein in their diet had greater than a 400% increased risk of dying from a cancer diagnosis and over a 75% increased risk of dying from any cause. So it's very concerning. So again, I'm not here to put people on a low protein diet, but the RDA, the recommended protein intake, is already considered 2 standard deviations above where you even need to be. And people go and double that. Yeah. So
that's amazing.
It is amazing. And you know, I have this conversation with people all the time because they're worried about protein deficiency. You know, there are times when you need to be mindful of your protein intake, you know, times of surgery or times of stress and things like that. So you may need a little bit more. Individuals 65 and older, this statistic does not apply to them. We do need to make sure they get enough protein. So I generally recommend for my whole food, plant only individuals who they're not doing any animal products, 0.9 grams per kilogram of ideal body weight. That is how much protein you would want.
Okay, we're gonna need a chart to help us on with that. But I'm going to address Bridget. She'd like access to the slides. Yes, anybody who wants access to the slides, just send us a note at info@genwnow.com. We'll be happy to send them. Bridget, we will definitely do that for you. And Mary, wow, I have a grown son who had a heart transplant 8 years ago, and his attitude is so much like Dawn's.
This is true. You know, this is what I was talking about, the beauty of transplant. I have chills saying that. There's no one that I've ever met who's undergone organ donation that doesn't have the same exact sentiment that I do. They're all just so grateful. And they're all living such beautiful, meaningful lives. And it's that ripple effect. It's like that pebble in the pond. You know, one life is saved and so many lives downstream are impacted. It's a beautiful, beautiful gift to consider. It really is the ultimate gift of life. So please consider, if you're not an organ donor, you can register on your iPhone app. You can go to www.registerme.org, or you can register at your local DMV. Very easy to register.
So, you know, I'm curious that, you know, you wanted to be healthy when you were young, you wanted to be a doctor. Was it that positivity that you brought to all of this that you think carried it through? I mean, do you find that you have a different attitude towards life prior versus post the beginning of your health journey?
No, you know, I think that there is an element of our biology, perhaps our genetics, that helps us to afford being a little bit more resilient at baseline, but we know we can teach that as well, right? And stress is interesting. You know, there's been research to show us that stressful events, that a lot of people avoid it. And people that try to avoid stress, and I actually had a conversation with someone recently, and they kind of tried to really hard debate me on this. And I tried to gently explain my reasoning based on the research. And what it shows is people who try to avoid stress actually have increased depression, and they usually rely more on harmful substances. You know, alcohol is a carcinogen, and I am a breast cancer doctor. And Donna, you brought up an important point where prevention is so key. You're already in that cancer space, but prevention, and alcohol is one of the factors that leads to early onset breast cancer. It increases premenopausal breast cancer, and we see a lot of very casual drinking nowadays. So I really, really want individuals to be mindful of the fact that alcohol is a carcinogen. It doesn't mean you have to avoid it altogether, but if you're going to drink it, don't drink it alone. Drink it in connection and love and harmony with another person. And if you enjoy it, in women, you should never have more than 1 standard drink size a day. That would be the goal. And really, that recommendation, I would take that down, you know, even less than 50%. And Institutes of Medicine did a neat statistic where if all Americans cut their alcohol consumption in half, we would save 1 million lives a year if we looked at a global pattern of this. So we want to be very careful with alcohol. But the point was with stress is that stress actually can be a teacher of life, you know, and we know that you can find and meaning from stressful events. There's been research studies that have shown that individuals who have more stressful life events actually are more likely to rate their life as meaningful than people that didn't have stressful events. And there's another interesting concept with the brain, and I love this, is, we can really learn and grow from stress. So if you have a stressful event or healthcare adversity, you can go down that path of post-traumatic stress disorder, but you don't have to succumb to that disease. You can go down a different path of post-traumatic growth. And so this comes from this theory that anytime you have a stressful event, there's a little imprint that's put into your brain about how that stress was. So the next stressful event comes on, it gets a little easier to accept that stress. And I think that my life really reflects that very beautifully. And so it's kind of like a stress inoculation, if you may. Your body gets stronger and stronger. And so we can maybe call it like a stress vaccine. And so learning to accept that stress, not fight it, is really, really important. And using that stress is something that can even energize us and give us reason to even find deeper meaning in our own life. And always seek social support as well. If there's a stressful event going on, lean in on those friends, families, and loved ones to help you during that time. That's very, very important.
And, we have a very special guest from the Mayo Clinic joining us today, Dr. Dawn. Did you happen to see?
Oh, I don't think you can see the chat. I can see the names, but I don't see that.
Olamari.
Oh, hello, Olamari. Yes, he's one of our research students. I was just research, and he's recently been presenting some amazing studies for us at Mayo Clinic in cardiovascular health. So we want to applaud research efforts in cancer, in heart disease, and diabetes, all of these areas, because we can help to cure many of these chronic diseases and congenital diseases that we see among individuals. So I would applaud him for the great work that he's doing for us too.
Yeah, so nice to see you, Mohammed. It's nice to see you, and thank you for all the work that you're doing. Janine Smith, all right, this is a great mom question, and yet we're all moms in some way. There's always some kid depending on us or in some way, right? How do you get them to eat healthier when they're so influenced by being cool and the influential food industry?
Yeah.
I know, listen, her daughter, I think all our kids begged for Lunchables for years, and it probably has some of those 26,000, maybe all of those chemicals, I'm not sure, but in that food. That's a great question.
Yeah, my daughter always wanted me to buy Lunchables, and I never once let her buy them or bring them into my home. So we would make our own Lunchables. You can get cute little Tupperware containers so your child still feels like they're one with their friends, and put healthy food in there. Rather than having salami and processed crackers and unhealthy candy-like desserts that they sometimes put in it, put healthy crackers, ones that are higher in fiber, some pita bread. Most all kids like hummus, and there's so many varieties of hummus. You can do sweet potato hummus. You can do edamame hummus. You can get them different colors depending on what you're putting in there to make it fun for them. Put some fun grapes in there. Dark chocolate is healthy, so you can even put a little healthy dark chocolate snack in there. There you go.
Yes.
There's
at least a couple of doses a day just does me just fine.
Yeah, so try to make that for your child. And it's very interesting, because these chemicals hack the brain. So it's not a matter of willpower. It really is the fact that the food industry is making food hyper palatable. It's making our tongue used to the expectation of having food that is not even natural in flavor anymore. We put more salt and artificial flavors in food, and even the meat is bred to be more fatty. So even it has a different palatability nature to it. So again, try just to lead by example, living it in your own life. It doesn't have to be a perfect diet, but anything that you're making in your home or sending to school with your kids from the home, I would try to have that as close to perfect as possible, and make it fun with them. Have them be involved as well. A great sweet treat for kids is medjool dates. You can put a little pecan in it, and it tastes like caramel. So we think kids don't want this stuff, but if you make it fun and you have your own authentic, enthusiasm around it, it's pretty exciting to see them on board with this very easily.
Dates are incredibly sweet. They feel like candy, right? And whatever. Bridget says she should be following her son. Yes, we should all follow our kids. They probably could teach us a lot, Bridget. Let me ask you this, because we're nearing the end of our time, Dr. Dawn. What do you think is the best advice for all of us to have a meaningful, full life? And yours has been so full so far, and you've got so much more to give.
Yeah. I think the most important thing with life is to have love and connection with others, with your family and with your friends. You know, that's what life is all about, is being there for others and just really extending that love. Beyond that, we need to be sure to, you know, show up for ourselves and take good care of ourselves as well. And that's why I love lifestyle medicine, because one of the pillars of lifestyle medicine is connections. And so it's that horizontal connection of connecting with other people, but also that vertical connection of even having that connection to something bigger than ourselves. And then beyond that, just that basic healthy living, eating healthy, moving our body, getting enough sleep, avoiding toxic substances like the alcohol and tobacco, like we mentioned briefly. And did I say getting enough sleep? I don't think I said getting enough sleep. So getting enough sleep and managing our stress, like we talked about also today. So just that overall concept of living healthy in a way that's accepting and harmony. We don't want to do anything when it comes to our health that's turbulent and miserable. We need to find a way to make it something that we enjoy. That is so critical. My way of living healthy energizes me. I get tickled when I make healthy food, and I see that in my own patients as well. So that's really the goal, is to find that harmony to help to elevate you as a person.
Right, totally. I have to say, I always like to wrap up with I always like to wrap up with some of the things that I write down. I always take notes as we go. Again, I want to go back to your comment about transformative power of pain and grief and strife, even being translating to a transformative power of renewal. Holding on to that is very powerful for me, and perhaps for many others as well. I love when you talk about the beat of your new heart. And I think there's kind of this symbolism there that, you know, we live life and we get set back, but we come back, and every time we do, we still have a beat of a new heart, right? A heart that's been informed perhaps by other things, and it keeps us going. Yours was, you know, obviously the physical aspect of it too, but I thought there was something so beautiful about the beat of a new heart. You told us that we should appreciate the sacredness of our own lives.
Isn't that
true? And I also love this one, because I definitely am glad to know that all the stress I bring on my own is a teacher and that we can grow from it, right? And that ultimately love and connection is the most important thing. And that's why we do Refresh. And that's why we are privileged to spend time with you, Dr. Dawn, and all of the people who join us, because this is about love and connection and sharing stories and all those things. So I just want to say thank you. And I also want to let everyone know that next week, and it's interesting, Dr. Dawn, you're going to love this woman. You should come join us, because when I met Kate Johnson, I met her on a panel that we talked about women's sports and cancer, believe it or not, because Kate Johnson is a survivor, and she's an amazing woman. She was an Olympian. She helped lead the U.S. rowing team to silver at the 2004 Olympic Games in Athens. She's a world champion, 3 times NCAA All-American, first team in rowing, and like you, wants to play it forward. Her career's been in the business of sports. She was the head of all of sports partnerships at Visa at one time, which was, in our industry of sports, a huge position. But she's now the head of global sports and entertainment for Google. And what she's actively doing there, not only in terms of bringing Google to the world and their message, but she's investing in women and women's sports. And like you, right, she wants to create an authentic difference in the life of the world. And I have to just tell you, I am glad that we've had this time together. I'm looking forward to our time next with Kate Johnson. So I thought, you'll be back. And doctor, if you'd like to leave us with the closing remark, I want to thank everybody. It's just been remarkable and wow.
Thank you so much for allowing me to participate in this wowing, because I feel very wowed and energized after that. And I love just to tell people, you know, you want to eat to live, you want to move to thrive, you want to connect to flourish. So that's what
I love that. Eat to live. Go ahead, go. Eat to live.
Move to thrive.
Got it.
Connect to flourish.
Okay, before we go, because we always like to answer people's questions, this is one thing I was going to say. We didn't talk about soy. How much soy should kids have?
Soy is safe for kids and adults. It does not increase the risk for breast cancer. It actually prevents the risk of breast cancer. And for breast cancer survivors, it's safe for you too. The American Cancer Society did a wonderful study last year, looked at all the highest quality data to date, and showed for breast cancer survivors, it reduces the risk of breast cancer coming back. And the American Institute for Cancer Research has also endorsed the fact that it looks like it also likely improves outcomes from a survival standpoint after a cancer diagnosis. So soy is safe, much safer and more favorable than having red meat, where the American Cancer Society now says, hey, We don't even know if there's a safe level of consumption of red meat. And we know for a fact that processed meat is a true carcinogen. So keep that in mind. Eat your soy, enjoy it. I recommend up to 3 servings a day. If you get a little bit more than that, it's not going to hurt you. But around 3 servings a day is where I feel it's really great.
And so, and here's a prescription for Connection and Love. Generation W, Believe, April 5th. We'll be at UNF. We have amazing programming coming together, a very strong thematic. It ties also into that spiritual thing that you talked about a lot. So I'm going to leave you today. Thank you so much, everyone, especially you, Dr. Dawn. Eat to live, move to thrive, connect to flourish. Be well, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Stay healthy.